Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudev Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Parvajita Hasta Sata Shishma Sangre Sesi Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki All glories to the Summit Devotees. All glories to the Summit Devotees. All glories to the Summit Devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Guru. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13. Dhritarashtra quits home. Now, I'm supposed to read from 1 to 15, but just recite verse 10. So how do you normally do that? You read them first?
Read the translations.
And then come back to 10 and do the Sanskrit. Okay, so we'll start with text 1. Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired.
After asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna, Vidura retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni.
When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhishthira, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, and many other wives of the Kauravas and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period.
With great delight, they all approached him. As if life had returned to their bodies, they exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces.
Anxieties. Go ahead.
Due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. King Yudhishthira then appeared to offer sitting, then arranged to offer sitting accommodations and a reception.
After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened.
Maharaj Yudhishthira said, "My uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? Your partiality, like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson."
While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service?
My lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage.
My uncle, you must have visited Dwarka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes?
Thus being questioned by Maharaj Yudhishthira, Mahatma Vidura gradually described everything he had personally experienced, except news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty.
Compassionate Mahatma Vidyar could not stand to see Bhagava's distress at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident, because calamities come of their own accord.
Thus, Mahatma Vidura, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his eldest brother, and in this way bring happiness to all the others.
As long as Vidura played the part of a Shudra being cursed by Manduka Muni, Aryama officiated at the post of Yamaraj to punish those who committed sinful acts.
Now read text 10. Bhagavad Vida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhutta Swayam Vivo Tirti Korvanti Tirtani Swantastena Gadadbrita Bhagavad Gita Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhutta Swayam Vivo Tirti Korvanti Tirtani Svantastena Gadadbrita Bhagavad Gita Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhutta Swayam Vivo Tirti Korvanti Tirtani Svantastena Gadadbrita Bhagavad Tirti Korvanti Tirtani Swantastena Gatabrita Bhagavad Gita Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhutta Swayam Vivo Tirti Korvanti Tirtani Swantastena Gatabrita Bhavat, your good self. Vidha, like. Bhagavata, devotees. Tirtha, the holy places of pilgrimage. Bhuta, converted into. Swayam, personally. Vibho, O powerful one. Tirti Korvanti, make into a holy place of pilgrimage. Tirtani, the holy places. Sva antaha stena, having been situated in the heart. Gadabrita, the personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Purport. The personality of Godhead is omnipresent by his diverse potencies everywhere, just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space. Similarly, the Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just as electricity is manifested in an electric bulb. A pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of the Lord and the Lord in everything. The holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousnesses of the human being by an atmosphere surcharged with the presence of the Lord's unalloyed devotees. If anyone visits a holy place, he must search out the pure devotees residing in such holy places, take lessons from them, try to apply such instructions in practical life, and thus gradually prepare oneself for the ultimate salvation, going back to Godhead. To go to some holy place of pilgrimage does not mean only to take bath in the Ganges or Jamuna, or to visit temples situated in those places. One should also find representatives of Vidura who have no desire in life, save and except to serve the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead is always with such pure devotees because of their unalloyed service, which is without any tinge of fruit of action or utopian speculation. They are in the actual service of the Lord, specifically by the process of hearing and chanting. The pure devotees hear from the authorities and chant, sing and write of the glories of the Lord. Mahamuni Vyasadeva heard from Narada, and he then chanted in writing. Shukadeva Goswami studied from his father, and he described it to Parikshit. That is the way of Srimad Bhagavatam. So by their actions, the pure devotees of the Lord can render any place into a place of pilgrimage. And the holy places are worth the name only on their account. Such pure devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere of any place. And what to speak of a holy place rendered unholy by the questionable actions of interested persons who try to adopt a professional life at the cost of the reputation of a holy place. So just read the verse again, maybe you can just repeat after me. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your hearts, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. So it's nice to see you all. Please, I beg, give me your blessings. I may say something that's uplifting and pleasing to the Lord and uplifting and edifying to all of you. This is a wonderful verse, this section about Vidura. He's an amazing personality. And it's quite a phenomenon that's described here, this idea of turning a place that's not holy into a holy place. Normally, we think of holy places as places, like in India, there's many holy places, and they're holy because Krishna was there. His foot was there on the ground, and he performed some pastime, and so it's a sanctified place. But Srila Prabhupada did an amazing thing. He created established so many temples, and in New Vrindavan, he made a statement to the effect that this place is as good as Vrindavan. He called it New Vrindavan. So this is as good as Vrindavan. When you think about it, that's a pretty amazing thing to say, because Vrindavan in India is very, very special. It's Kasundad, it's a spiritual abode. It's got all kinds of potency, because Krishna has so many pastimes there. So how can this place in fallen America, I've born and raised in America, and I can vouch for its fallenness. There's not many, few good qualities about it, but not so many. It's mostly a material, it thrives and teaches material culture. So how can this place in the hills of West Virginia be considered as good as Vrindavan? And I was there one year talking with His Holiness Varshnava Swami. He was explaining this Dham. One of his services is to establish this Dhams, to manifest this Dham. And I got very inspired, and I was thinking, well, if this can happen in New Vrindavan, then maybe when we go home, we can make our home a Dham. But I had some doubt. I said, well, our home is just a house. It's not going to be a Dham like New Vrindavan or Vrindavan. So I inquired from him, and he'd helped me to see that what makes a holy place. This is a holy place. Krishna House is famous. I'm sure you know. You go anywhere in the world, and they know about Krishna House and the bhakti that is here. So why is Krishna House a sacred place? Why is this what makes it holy? The devotees. The devotees and their activities, right? They're worshiping Krishna. This house is different from that. So if Krishna's living there, that makes it a holy place. He's being worshipped. And so Maharaj helped me to see that you can turn any place into a holy place by worshiping Krishna and manifesting him. And there's an interesting point made here in the purport about how electricity is everywhere in the air. They named this company Tesla after the original Tesla was many, many years ago. And he understood that, well, you don't need to pay for electricity. You can just generate it. If you know the science, There's different polarities between the earth and the airs, and if you do certain things, you can manifest electricity because it's there. The energy's there. It's in the sun. It's like a solar panel. The sun shines every day. You put out a solar panel, you can charge your laptop. So the electricity is there, but you need the right mechanism to turn it into something that's useful. So in the same way, sages, great sages like Vidura, they can take this presence of the Lord. It's kind of amazing because he lives in everyone's heart. Everyone you see on the street, Krishna's there in their heart. But this verse is glorifying Vidura because Krishna was in his heart. Because he's seeing Krishna and he's understanding how to manifest, how to worship him in such a way that others can see him. It's quite fascinating when I heard a lecture, a series of talks by His Grace, the late Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu. And he was describing how the Vedas, Narada Muni, we often say he compiled the Vedas. But the Vedas actually exist. They're there. It's like 1 billion verses there in the Akash records. They exist. And then in each era, Vyasadeva comes and he sorts through these billion verses and he selects the 400,000 or so that are relevant to this particular time. And so then he compiles them and he breaks them into 4 segments. But the verse is already there. It's just he's seeing them and he says, oh yeah, this is appropriate, so let me gather those. And then we say he compiled because he assembled them and put them together. So this is what a sage, a muni, means, to see. You can see. A devotee of the Lord can see Krishna. And so then because he can see and he can feel the presence of Krishna, he can then look around him and see how to manifest that according to time, place, and circumstance. Srila Prabhupada was a master of this, that he turned places into pilgrimage. We have so many temples. And it's a wonderful thing. In ISKCON, you go to any temple in the world, and although the culture may be different, the language may be different, it's a whole different environment, and yet you walk in and you feel like you're at home. The incense is there, the deities are there, prasadam is there. It just feels the same. Like, it's different, but it's the same. You feel comfortable. Oh yes, I know this place, even though you've never been there. So this is the mercy of Krishna that these places are established. And so as we worship Krishna in our hearts and in our homes and wherever we reside, then he becomes more and more manifest and we are able to see him. So this idea that's mentioned here in this verse, how he turns a place into a place of pilgrimage, it's not described in this purport, but there are other places where it's described that if you go to a holy place, the Ganges or different tirthas in India, many materialistic people go there. Why? Why do people go to holy places? Yes.
They want to either just take a bath in a river or such and get rid of sinful reactions, or they want to try and garner some pious karma.
Right, they want to deposit those unwanted things, sinful reactions. Let me get rid of these and let me get something that's good. And so when you have a place that, like a dump, there's in Florida, we take our trash to the dump. You have a place where you deposit unwanted things. That place isn't generally somewhere you would want to hang out. You deposit your unwanted things and you leave. So how is it that these holy places don't become like the county dump? They just become smelly, horrible places. It's because of saintly persons like Vidura and devotees, great devotees, because they go there. Also, they don't go there to get purified. They go there to purify that place. By their presence, because they're absorbed in spiritual consciousness, they're not touched by the material energies. When a pure devotee goes to a place, that place becomes purified. And whatever sinful reactions were deposited by materialistic people, they're just absorbed, they're dissolved. So then the holy place stays holy. The churches remain purified. And their potency doesn't get lost because of the saintly persons who visit there. It's a very important point. So this is what's being described here of Vidura. And it's kind of an amazing meditation. We think Vidura in this life, he was cursed to be a Sudra, so he took his life as Vidura. didn't have the greatest association. He's hanging out with Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana and all of their evil schemes. Of course, he had Bhishma, who was elevated, but it wasn't the greatest association. And in his full-time job as Yamaraj, it's not the greatest association. Most of his time is spent punishing people for their sinful actions. If you're pious and you leave your body, Yamaraj has nothing to do with you. Krishna Dutas come and you go to your spiritual residence. But for sinful people, Yamaraj sends his deputy. So the point is, Yamaraj doesn't have a tremendous amount of very good association, and yet he's always very, very elevated because his consciousness is so fixed on Krishna that these things don't affect him. Prabhupada uses the term, he uses two terms. One is antiseptic and one is prophylactic, I think. I think of it like Teflon. Like devotees, as they become, especially from the morning program, their daily chanting, their daily hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, they become coated with this Teflon. They become to where they go out in the material world and it doesn't affect. It just sort of, you might come in contact with people or things that are materialistic, but it just kind of slides off you. It doesn't stick. It doesn't affect you. And so this is the effect. This is Yamaraj. He's such a powerful devotee that in spite of this bad association which he has to contend with in doing his service, it doesn't affect him. And the same with Vidura. So this ability to see. So Maharaj, as Holy Svarshana Swami, he got me a glimpse, and I could see a little bit that yes, you can turn any place into a place of pilgrimage. And we've seen this repeatedly in Hungary. Holy Sri Ram Swami's created a new Rajdham. There's a whole residence there. And I went one time to Mayapur. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati created Radhakund and Shamakund and Govardhan Hill in Mayapur, which normally those places are in Vrindavan. And I was a very new devotee. I didn't really understand a whole lot philosophically, but I had been to Radhakund. And when I was there, circumambulating this small Govardhan Hill in Mayapur with Radhakund and Shamakund, it felt very similar. It felt very powerful, very potent, and so I could see. So how is this possible? Because by seeing this vision, again, the electricity is in the air everywhere. So if we know the science, we can make it manifest. We can create a device, and then you plug something into it, and you tap into that electricity, even though it's all around us. So in the same way, this is what a saintly person can do. This is what a devotee can do. And not only Vidura and Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada's vision was actually that everyone would become just as potent as him. Of course, we can't see that. I can't see myself as ever being as potent as Srila Prabhupada. But his vision and Lord Chaitanya's vision was, yes, you go learn this science, go out, make everyone devotee, be a guru, and change the world, save the world. So this is our mission, this is what devotees do. That they transform a materialistic place into a spiritual place, one by one, individual people or whole buildings, whole temples. This is their charge. And whether they're conscious of it or not, they do it automatically, just being somewhere when you see a devotee. And you can experience this. I remember when I was a new devotee, I lived about 45 minutes from the temple. So I had to drive down for the Sunday feast. Mostly I just went on Sunday feast. And then a little bit later, my material life got a little worse. And then I was sort of impelled to go more often and drive down for Mangalarti and things. But because I was such a long distance away, I saw the devotees on Sunday. And then during the week, I was working, doing different things. And I remember going down, they would go to certain spots for Harinam. And I would go there. And just when I would see them, I would just feel so happy because it's like, oh, relief, sunshine, warmth. Yes, the material energies are dispelled. And it was very profound in Los Angeles. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, I grew up in San Diego. In Los Angeles, I didn't like it. It's very passionate, very intense city, hard place to be. For me, it was a hard place to be. But when Rathayatra was there, it was just like this bubble. Just in the spiritual world. And it was very profound because You walk right outside the perimeter and you can feel the material energies. And it's in Venice Beach, which is a nice area, but it's also materially, it's nice because it's on the ocean and there's some kind of forward-thinking people, but there's a lot of bad people and drugs and different things. So it's not, the material energies, you can feel them very powerfully. But you can feel this border. This is the devotees, everything's fine. You walk about 10 feet and you can feel the material energies kind of encroaching on you. So let me go back into the kirtan. So I had that experience, and then I could just see it. You could almost visually see this invisible wall. And I learned, wow, spiritual energy is real. It's powerful. Because when I'm over here, I'm happy. When I'm over there, I'm nervous. Something's going to happen. I'm going back over here. And so I didn't understand philosophically what was going on, but I could perceive, I could see this spiritual energy is real. And as long as you stay in the spiritual energy, everything's fine. And then the devotees close up and leave, and the nighttime descends, and the place becomes a little less palatable. And this phenomenon is not uncommon to Venice Beach. I've seen it in Australia. They have a festival at midnight on New Year's. And at one point, it got hard to kind of maintain it. They were going to stop doing it. And the authorities said, no, you can't stop. You have to come. Because when you're not here, we have all kinds of problems. People get stabbed and hurt and attacked, and people are drunk. But when you're here, our jobs are so easy. We don't have all these troubles. And that's happened with Poland Festival, same thing. They love Indradina Mirage with the festival because there's so many people, and they have other bands and have other kinds of music, but when the devotees are there, the whole place is just, it's much easier to manage because people are just generally peaceful. And so this is the potency of the spiritual energy. So this is what devotees do, where they go to a place, and how does that happen? Because when a devotee goes to a place, they have no interest except to glorify the Lord. So in the temple, they glorify the Lord, we read, we chant, we hear about him, we dance. When they go out, they go on Harinam, the kirtan, they arrange some festival. And devotees are very much addicted. In the material world, addiction's not generally a good thing. There's an opioid crisis that people are dying daily, have been for years because they're suffering so much. But devotees are very much addicted that the only thing they can ever get pleasure from is worshiping Krishna. And the more they worship him, the more pleasure they get. But the problem is then you have to do more worship. Or then you have to get other people to. It's not enough that I'm worshiping Krishna. Let me get some other people to worship him with me. Then it's more enjoyable. So let's have a festival. Let's have a Harinam. Let's get some other people engaged. And so they're addicted to this glorification of Krishna because this is our natural state. And so wherever they go, this is what they do. Whether they're distributing books or doing Harinam or just being friendly in the store. I remember one time somebody, I was just going through the checkout line and I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't like just trying to distribute a book or saying anything spiritual. The cashier was just saying, wow, it's so nice to see somebody so happy. I was like, I didn't feel like I was expressing any great happiness, but some people, they just, when they see someone that's peaceful and smiling, it attracts them. So this is what devotees do. So this is what's being described in this verse about Vidura. And not only Vidura, it's this is an extreme example, of course, and Srila Prabhupada is a very extreme example. But again, Srila Prabhupada, when you study his books, you can see that his mission was to execute, his mission was ultimately to execute Lord Chaitanya's mission, which was to spread this movement to every town and village. This was the order he was giving by his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and it was inaugurated largely in a big way by Bhaktivinoda Thakur to distribute it. And so Lord Chaitanya had this vision that go out, everyone, take this holy name. So many people wanted to join his party. He said, no, you just stay home, do your job, keep doing what you're doing. You don't need to surrender everything, but just invite people to your home, talk about Krishna. Wherever you see, talk about Krishna. Make your home a sacred place. And in this way, change the world. So we're all charged to do that, to make our own homes, our own hearts in our own lives as Krishna conscious as we can, and then provide in that way, provide a beacon and provide a manifestation. I know what attracted me to Krishna consciousness, that the philosophy was very attractive. It was stimulating. I really liked the philosophy. But what really stuck was in reading Srila Prabhupada's books and in meeting a devotee, seeing this is how devotees are. This is just their persona. I want to be like that. Just the way they are. Wow, he's peaceful. They're knowledgeable. Whether they're academically knowledgeable or not wasn't such an important thing. But just the fact that they're happy in spite of around them, there's a lot of reason not to be happy. And I thought, well, this is very powerful. I want to be like that, because I wasn't feeling that happiness. I was feeling, what do they say? Sometimes you have a God-shaped hole in your heart. So that was me. My hole is huge, and I had created so much suffering in my material life because I kept trying to fill it with all the wrong things. When I saw devotees that had less things than I did, and they were happier than I was, I realized, okay, you're going about this all wrong. Let me talk to these devotees and find out what it is. And so that presence, that I want to say persona, but it's not just that presence a devotee has of being peaceful and tolerant and happy. It's very, very attractive. And people are suffering so much. So it's not that you have to go do some Herculean task. You just have to be yourself. You just be convinced that if I just love Krishna, that's the only thing I need. There's nothing else I need. I don't need a new iPhone. I don't have to have a new laptop. Maybe I need something for my service. Okay, you can get a computer for your service. But all of these things aren't going to make me happy. I just need to love Krishna. If I love Krishna, whatever else I need, it will come. It will be arranged. So if we have that conviction, then we become very deeply satisfied, and people will sense that, and it will create the same effect with Vidura. It will create places that are sacred. Another just small thing. This is almost a mundane thing, but I guess it's spiritualized. The devotees by nature, and this is just on a very kind of, I want to say non-spiritual level, although it can create a spiritual atmosphere. Prabhupada said that we hear in the world a lot that cleanliness is next to godliness. I grew up and I would hear that phrase. But Prabhupada actually said cleanliness is godliness. So devotees by nature, one of the characteristics of a Brahmin is he leaves a place cleaner than he found it. Right? So devotees by nature, because they don't like to be idle, if they don't have a specific service they're supposed to be doing, they'll just make things better. They'll just clean, they'll paint, they'll do something to make it nicer. And so just on a kind of mundane material platform, devotees purify places because they just make them better. They make them cleaner. And what to speak of the spiritual impact of their bhakti that adds that transcendental realm. I remember I learned this very powerfully when I was a young devotee. I was really attached to this song by George Harrison, My Sweet Lord, because back then, now I don't know they have so much, but back then the radios would play all the time. You'd have a radio in your car. They didn't have iPods, didn't exist, and MP3 players didn't exist. They had 8-track tapes and things, but radios were kind of special for me because I could tune it into a channel. I could hear this song, the Mahamantra, playing. So I'd get very happy. But then sometimes I'd hear it through a radio in someone else's radio. And then I'm thinking, oh, Krishna's talking to me. Oh, this is very nice. Now I'm hearing Krishna, and I didn't control it, make it happen. It just happened. So I developed this mentality that whenever I heard this song, My Sweet Lord, whenever it got to the part with the Mahamantra, I felt like, oh, Krishna's smiling. He's encouraging me. And so one day I was just feeling really depressed. I was kind of in the modes and just eating the wrong things and sleeping too much and all this. And I got really kind of fed up, and I thought, I'm tired of this. I'm in my house. It's just, the apartment's a mess. I'm going to clean it. I'm going to paint the walls. I'm going to just wash everything. And I spent the whole day just cleaning the house, which isn't, I'm not like a clean freak by nature. I have to force myself to tidy up. So I put in all this effort to make everything really clean. And just when I finished, somebody had a radio and My Sweet Lord came on. And so I thought, oh, I learned Krishna likes cleanliness. He's happy because everything's nice. So I'm going to keep it nice, and that way he'll be happy. And so I learned, when I thought of this, what Prabhupada said, that cleanliness is godliness, when we keep things very clean. And I learned it later when I lived with my spiritual master, I lived in his living room, that the standard of cleanliness was something I was not used to. That I put a cup in the sink and he's like, what are you doing? You have to rinse this out and put it away. And I mean, just vacuum the floor every day, it elevated me to a whole new level. And I could feel that yes, when the material environment is clean, the consciousness automatically lifts. The next thing you want to do is chant and read and do kirtan, like it just automatically lifts. So I learned that, very powerful. If I'm not feeling inspired, then look around you and look at what needs to be cleaned up. There's probably something pulling you down. And so these are just kind of material things, but it taught me early on the potency of when we do these little things, then the spiritual energy becomes much more manifest. What to speak of when we do the spiritual things, then it really, and the two go together. When we have a nice kirtan, we chant our rounds nicely, we look around, we can't tolerate messes and things. We just naturally say, look, this is uncomfortable. It interferes with my japa, so I'm going to rearrange this or that, or do whatever we need to do. So I don't know how I got on that topic of cleanliness, because I'm not known to be a particularly clean person, but yeah, the idea, the point is that devotees by nature, as they become more fixed in their love for Krishna, they automatically purify place, whether they purify it materially or they purify it spiritually by their devotion. It just happens automatically. So we don't have to put special effort into how can I purify this place. We just have to say, how can I love Krishna? And how can I help others love Krishna? Krishna is so wonderful. If they knew about him, all their problems would be solved. So what can I do to help encourage them to be interested? And this is the heart of a devotee. So anyway, for me, I guess one other small point that jumps out in this section of verses we read was how devotees, in the Western culture, we're supposed to be honest. You're not supposed to lie or leave something out. So they call it lie by omission. If you don't tell somebody something, it's not a good thing. You should be truthful with them and give them everything. But we see in the Vedas, it has a little different standard. Vidura had this bad news about the Yadu dynasty and Krishna, and the devotees were asking, so how is everybody? And he just kind of neglected to tell them, Krishna's gone, the Yadu dynasty's finished. Why? It's like they'll find out sooner or later. I remember my spiritual master, Mukunda Maharaj, mentioned when Srila Prabhupada left the planet, he was in LA at the time, and he was on his way over to the temple, and he was just going through who knows what, trying to understand how do you survive without Srila Prabhupada on the planet. And a devotee had driven up or walked up, and was having trouble with their car, wouldn't start, and they needed some jumper cables. This devotee didn't know that Srila Prabhupada left the planet. And Mukunda was just like trying to figure out how to function. And this person asked for some help with his car, and he realized, he said, I can't tell him because it'll just ruin him. He'll find out in another 15 minutes or 20 minutes, or he's going to know, but I don't want to be the one to ruin his life. Let natural events take their course. So we don't always have to share everything and give people. There's a Vedic injunction actually about speaking the truth. If it's unpalatable, some things don't have to be said. They'll find out on their own. Now, in some cases, we have to tell people things. But generally, our interactions should be uplifting and truthful and helpful to people. So I just thought that was an interesting point that Vidura opted to just leave out a very important, major component to reality, because what's the point? It's just going to cause distress. And the fact is, they're going to find out sooner or later. I don't need to be the cause of their distress. So it's a good lesson for us that we when we interact with people, we can just focus on those things that are going to help them to develop their love for Krishna. And those other things, they'll learn other lessons in other ways. We don't need to be the bearer of bad news. There's so much bad news out there already. We should be the bearers of good news and give people that information that's going to uplift them. So I think I'll stop there and see if there's any questions. Yes, and one here and one here.
Thank you so much for class, Prabhu. On this last topic of bad news, I highly recommend, if there's anyone sitting here that still likes to tune into the news regularly, like I haven't done that for decades, and it's really refreshing and really frees up your consciousness. And as you mentioned, if anything is important enough, it'll come around to you just by word of mouth.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that.
That's good news. I go every now and then. I still work, every day, and so every now and then I'll check the news, thinking what things, and every time I do, I regret it. It's like, what's the point? It's just worthless. It's just the same. And the funny thing is, and Henry David Thoreau wrote about this 100 years ago. If you look at the news today and you look at the news from 100 years ago, there's no difference. People are dying, people are sick, the politics are there, this guy says this. It's fundamentally, there's nothing new in the news. So that's nice. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yes. Oh, wait, she had her hand and then. It shouldn't be called news. Shouldn't be called news. It's not. It's stale. It's just nonsense.
Thank you for the class. Some of us are traveling to Vrindavan soon, including me. And hearing this makes me feel like, oh, why am I spending so much money and time if Krishna House itself is a holy dham? So how can we feel or more inspired to visit the holy places hearing this?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to dampen your enthusiasm to go to Vrindavan. You can be inspired because in Krishna House is holy, and there are, 30 people. In New Vrindavan, you go to Vrindavan and you'll see hundreds and thousands of devotees. And so that's very, very inspiring. And there's very advanced devotees. There's devotees who actually just material energies don't touch them, doesn't affect them. And you can see that. You can just look at them and you can feel like they really don't care about all these things. The first time I went to India, I was just stunned. It was major culture shock. People living on a cot in the middle of the road, and he's got a peaceful look on his face, and I think I need this and all these things to be happy. I'm like, I'm not happy as he is, and I have a house, and he doesn't. And he wasn't even necessarily a devotee. That was just an ordinary citizen. And then you get to the temples and you see people who are so fixed, and you can just feel it. You see Radha Shyama and you see the pujaris, and you see all the pilgrims that come from, I don't know how many hundreds of miles that come to see him. I thought, you can feel their devotion, and it's really nice when you're up in the front of the temple. It's hard to get in the front of the temple sometimes. There's so many people, but you can feel their love for Krishna. It kind of passes through you, and you're like, wow, I need that. And so it's very, very powerful place because just the sheer magnitude of it, and the principle is the same. So New Vrindavan is considered like Vrindavan because you can establish Krishna's pastimes, but it's new, and it's just been there for a few years, or maybe a few decades. But Vrindavan's been there a long, long time, and with thousands of people, and so that potency is definitely increased. Not to minimize the potency here, but yeah, when you get there, you'll feel very happy that you came. It's well worth whatever money it takes to get there. It's worth every penny. It's worth 10 times that much. So, and you can tell because you get transformed. Every time I go to the Holy Dham, you come back and you're like, I need to just adjust things. I don't need this. I don't need to listen. It changes you. So I highly recommend it. Yeah. Hope that helps.
Out of time, but maybe you can answer in a minute the question I had. The bearer of bad news, if everybody is walking and everybody's smiling and just telling everybody good news, but internally everybody's having something inside, and I feel like it's superficial, or it can be superficial. So is there a time for us to reveal to somebody bad news or get some help or whatever?
Well, yeah, and it depends how we define bad news. Like in this case, in Verdura's case, they were going to find out anyway, and it wasn't really going to help the situation. But when we see people suffering, if you know that the train bridge is out and the train's going to go off the cliff, and you're at the station, the last station on the stop, then we want to tell, the conductor or somebody, hey, don't start the train because everyone on it is going to die. So everyone walking around is going to die. And so, yeah, it behooves us to give them knowledge that maybe, we were at a program the other day at College Central, I forget the name of it, Central College in Florida. Actually, you're famous there too, because they have a interfaith class that professor invites devotees every semester. And one time you guys went down there and he was talking about it. He remembered when you came and talked to his class. So anyway, they're young students, enthusiastic, and I find myself saying words about, death, we're going to die, we're not this body, and so it's kind of gloomy and morbid topics. But if we don't understand who we are, then we're just going to get entangled. So yes, you have to give people information sometimes that may disturb them. It may sound like bad news, but your point is to help redirect them to where they don't suffer and remove that suffering. I don't know if that addresses your question exactly, but sometimes I remember devotees, they're very direct and blunt when I first met. And I remember the first Nam Hop program I went to, I was so proud of myself. I made this little stew, like a khichdi, that I was eating all the time, so I knew how to make it, because I was practicing. I took it, and they could smell immediately and say, does this have onions in it? And I thought, yeah, I guess I hadn't read the books that closely because I didn't understand about the no onion. So I said, well, yeah, there's onions in it. With this big, and they just handed it back to me and said, we can't accept this. Put it back in your car because we can't offer it. And they weren't particularly warm and fuzzy about it. It was just the stating of facts. Sorry, this is not offerable. Put it back in your car. We don't want it. And I felt a little bit like, what? I understood from that instant on. I'm like, when you cook something for Krishna, you have to think about what's in it. And so it gave me a very good lesson that, yeah, I wasn't really thinking about the ingredients. I was just cooking something that would taste good. And it taught me that, when devotees cook, it's not for the tongue, it's for Krishna, So sometimes we have to give news that's not so pleasant, but it's good for their benefit. Then that's our duty to do. I think. What's that? Yeah, I have a tendency to go over. I don't want to do that. Okay. Grantra Shambhagatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all. Thank you.